you can usually go into AI and ask it certain questions around, hey, I just bought this thing and I got this new marketing campaign, training philosophy, whatever it might be, $17, this new funnel, whatever the thing might be. Give it some information, give it a website, give it whatever, and ask it, can you give me some background information on the kind of psychological or underlying principles at play within this thing that I'm buying, but then also the strategy / tactics that are being used, so I know how to later modify this should the efficacy of this die down or dwindle or some version thereof.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might go out and do it and like you suck the first time you do something because you just do it. Maybe that's why it didn't work. Maybe it doesn't work because it's your use case.
Yeah.
But try, and this is where, our episode we talk about being a problem solver. Also be a little bit of an investigator so you can go learn some of those things and understand the underlying inner workings of what's at play. Welcome back to Beyond the Pump. We break down the business of fitness and nutrition, and today we're going to be talking about what happens when your business fails or part of your business is failing, and how do we overcome that? How do we know it's happening, and just really what to kind of go through. It's something that we've probably all experienced to some extent where, man, I've had some type of hardship in my business. I mean, you got enough certifications. Nothing bad's going to happen in your business. When you got 77 certifications, nothing bad happens. But
everything bad happens.
I've been there before where in my gyms, my brick and mortars, I was going through just a rough patch. I had, I think, my second or third studio, and just shit wasn't going well. And I just was really going through this process of just identity crisis. Is it going to even work? What do I do? And it was failing. And the first thing that I remember doing was basically hiding from solving the actual problem. I'd sit in the back in my office and build a new Excel sheet for the sales presentation. When the reality is I didn't have a problem converting people. When I got people in the door, I don't remember the numbers, but it was a high conversion percent. Let's say 60, 70% or even better. I just didn't have many of those opportunities. So I was sitting there solving the wrong problem. And the first thing you need to understand is, what is the problem? What are you facing? What do you need to solve? Now, 13, 14 years later from that, the biggest thing that I understand my issue was now is I was using tactics. I wasn't understanding the principles at play in my business. And today, in our guru social media influencer world, there are endless amount of tactics that are out there. And tactics aren't bad. They are not bad, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way because it very easily can be that. And I'm going to shit on some tactics. Like, let's call it.
Well, before we go too far and before we start, you seeing how many times we can say tactics in a single minute.
Listen.
Well, we want to understand at the end of the day, and you hear people say tactics and strategies and methods and frameworks and principles, and at the end of the day, they all go back to what we know works for the most part across a lot of different things. It's the concept that something's based on. That's the principle. And we know that the tactics are just your actual things that you're going to do that should help bring that principle to life in those circumstances. And what we're seeing right now is that in the guru world, these people have found very specific things to do, whether it's like, hey, here's a scholarship that's going to help you generate more inquiries, that's going to help you then have more sales conversation opportunities, that's then going to potentially help you gain more clients. Those would all be based upon the principle of like lead generation or, kind of that bucket. Is that the only tactic that matters? Definitely not. There are so many different ways that you could go about getting new clients, or in this case, like diagnosing why your business failed catastrophically. You would want to go back to, well, what did I do and what did I get? And that would be how you diagnose which tactics aren't necessarily working and which ones you want to retool. Maybe you don't throw them out, but maybe you just need to examine them and figure out and troubleshoot them a little bit. So, kind of looking at tactics versus principles, like that's how I would describe it. So when you think about and you explain tactics and principles, to some of the business consulting clients, like how do you help them understand that what they think is a problem may not necessarily be the problem? It may be the tactic or the way they're executing against the problem.
Honestly, it comes down to finding a way to explain what I'm seeing in multiple different ways until it really hits home. Because most people that own a business, they've had some level of success. And that level of success could have been, I did $50,000. It could be I did $500,000. It could be I did $5 million. either way, that person did that, and it's more than zero. And that reinforcement of this bad practice per se, or this thing that's maybe not a long-term viable solution or tactic, is going to turn you down this road of, well, oh, I did it once, I know it works. And if you don't know the underlying components of what's going on, that's where you start to struggle. And most of the time online, what we'll see is buy this $17, $27, $9 thing, and you're buying a tactic that you can immediately take and deploy and create an outcome. I don't know if it's bad or good, but you can create an outcome. A lot of times you don't get taught the principle of the tactic that you're buying. And that's, again, I'm not saying that it's not worth the $27. But if you don't figure out what's going on and learn how to adapt it for different situations, economies, or whatever, that's where you start to run into a problem.
Yeah. And when we take this and make it something a little more less conceptual, like in the health coaching space where people are really understanding that GLP-1s, those are the things that are really contributing to people being finally able to lose that weight, which when we think about the tactic versus the principle, the GLP-1, the Ozempic, the Wegovy, the tirzepatide, like all these different weight loss drugs that exist, those are just different ways to cause people to have a reduction in their appetite. If you don't want to eat as much, inherently you're going to eat less for the most part, which is then going to help you create a bigger calorie deficit. And we know from physics, as of right now, sure, hormones can kind of play around with that a little bit, influence it, but you have to eat less than what your body burns to lose weight. The method or the tactic would be these weight loss drugs. Now, there are other tactics that you could theoretically implement. Fitness, you can work out hard, right? Well, what are you going to do from
I was thinking you tape your mouth shut.
You could tape your mouth shut, right? If you're in a hostage situation, I can definitely see that.
Is that not a tactic?
You'd have to run away. Oh, I see. Okay, I was like, wait. I was thinking about exercising. I'm like, wait, how are they?
No.
That makes more. I was like, oh, okay. What kind of workouts are you doing, Steven?
Eating less.
Eating less. Yeah, absolutely. That's a method. You can eat with your non-dominant hand to give yourself time to feel and have your body register that you've eaten enough. Because sometimes if people just wolf their food down. But the point being is that if you're trying to help people eat less.
Call me out.
Oh, well, he is a fast eater, folks. So when you try to get people to eat less, that's the principle. The tactics are many. The principles are few. And this is why when you are having a problem solve and you buy a $5,000 to $7,000 to $25,000 business mentor or program and it doesn't work, it's because, and we go back, if you haven't watched the certification one yet, go back and review that because we talk heavily about this. Everything that you see someone's created was based upon a problem they were solving, right? So when you have this business mentor, he was like, hey, how do I get people to consistently execute these things? Here are the 3 frameworks that I've created. Now go apply them everywhere. Well, when the people that are buying this and they're trying to execute against it don't have the same situation or circumstances, now it's not going to work as well. And so they have this tool. They have no idea why it exists, why it was created. They just know that it's not working. No wonder they're going to get frustrated.
Yeah. It's on the acquisition side of the business, just to make it tangible as well.
Yeah.
There's some ideas and principles in marketing, let's say, the idea of loss aversion, right? People don't like to lose something. To put it in a super common language, you are more upset when you lose $100 than you are happy when you get $100, right? So but it's because you lost it, even though the net change in either direction was still 100. There's that bigger impact. So people losing something is like, oh man. So how can we deploy that in a, let's say, marketing, acquisition, sales side of the house? Well, hey, I'm giving away a free thing that you likely really want to one person. Then all of a sudden one person wins and everybody else inherently then loses.
Yeah.
So how do you bridge that emotional gap for them? Well, you call them and say, well, you didn't win 100%, but I'm going to help solve your emotional problem, I'm going to give you 15% off. You're going to pay 85%, but you still get something. And there's a certain percentage of the population that go down that road of, oh, okay, I'll do it. And it solves the feeling of loss and they still spend. Or the other side of things where you can have, from a marketing strategy or principle is like a social sharing campaign. How do I offer something for my raving fans that they really want that will prompt them to share this thing? Some type of marketing. I want to get contacts, people to buy a thing, sales calls, whatever it might be. And you get people to go do it. So, okay, cool. Well, man, if I could create like a super mega acquisition event, can I shove two kind of principal things together
Mm.
and whatnot? And it goes down this road of like, all right, I convince everybody to share this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The winner is going to get a cool thing. And then also, if I layer in things that you're guaranteed to win, well, man, if I just do 5 things and no matter what I can't lose,
Yeah.
loss aversion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, on the receiving end of the things, I didn't win the thing. I feel bad. Well, hey,
Yeah.
I can give you this discount. Oh, I feel good again. And we'll commonly hear this as like a grant or a scholarship or a giveaway or whatever. Those are well-designed marketing campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is, let me run the exact same thing, give away the exact same thing every single month, all of these components. Eventually it becomes stale. And if you don't know how to make changes to it, that's where it just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, and this is kind of an interesting perspective shift. If you don't want to get gotten when it comes to marketing, you need to really take some time to reflect on what your true needs are based upon what are the problems that recurringly come up that you're struggling to solve. And those would be things that I would suggest people invest in. If you are a personal trainer and you're constantly having clients that have injuries with their elbows, with their shoulders, with their knees, and it's like 80% of your clients after they start working with you develop those issues, you should probably figure that out, right? Otherwise, they're not going to stay clients long because you injure them and it decreases their lifespan with you. Conversely, or thinking about nutrition coaching wise, like if your clients aren't losing weight and they constantly drop off after 3 weeks, understanding why they're dropping off would be the thing that you would then want to solve. And so, kind of reviewing like there's nothing really new. This is where you want to look at, and this is one of the things that in my 70 whatever certifications at this point, I used to look at what they did differently, and I would be like, oh, well, what's this? Like, how do I implement this? And it really took me a lot of time to draw and kind of like find the thing that I wanted to pull out of every experience. I would sit in a 2-day course and pull maybe one pearl by the time I was wrapping up all these certifications. And it was really a bad use of time. Imagine sitting through 16 hours to find 30 seconds of content that you're like, oh, that's helpful. Not really the best use. So then the idea becomes like, how do you understand what you're looking for? But looking at all these experiences, and I heard this from Michael Ban, who's one of my original coaches when I was doing competitive CrossFit. He said that one of the things that he looked for was what are all the good coaches doing that's the same versus what are all the coaches doing that are different, which is I think when people want to stand out, they tend to get attracted to the things that are different because they also want to stand out, but they don't have a good foundation for them to start to deviate or differentiate themselves. And so now they're building on a weird foundation. So, much to your point, like I don't think there really is anything new. I would say that things are just recycled, but the principles are recycled, but the tactics can change. And we see this with one particular guy that we know that he likes to change what he calls things a lot. It's the same program. I think we've seen it rewrapped 4 different times. And every time it happens, there's an influx of business. Does it mean the thing actually changed? No. Does it mean that the tactics changed? Not necessarily. In fact, rarely. But there's an evolution of how he then packages the principle, which then changes how it seems or the tactics that he uses to execute that against.
Yeah, and when you're running a business, the amount of times you're changing all of those things directly correlates to how much time you're not working on your business, like and actually growing something sustainable.
Yeah.
So like just keep that in mind. Go out and typically the most boring, consistent solutions are, sadly, for people who like to tinker, like the best solutions for the business from a growth standpoint. You likely already know the answer. As you're going out and buying these things and any AI software today, and we know I enjoy my AI tinkering, but you can usually go into AI and ask it certain questions around, hey, I just bought this thing and I got this new marketing campaign, training philosophy, whatever it might be, $17, this new funnel, whatever the thing might be. Give it some information, give it a website, give it whatever, and ask it, can you give me some background information on the kind of psychological or underlying principles at play within this thing that I'm buying, but then also the strategy / tactics that are being used, so I know how to later modify this should the efficacy of this die down or dwindle or some version thereof.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might go out and do it, and like you suck the first time you do something because you just do it. Maybe that's why it didn't work. Maybe it doesn't work because it's your use case.
Yeah.
But try, and this is where, our episode we talk about being a problem solver. Also be a little bit of an investigator so you can go learn some of those things and understand the underlying inner workings of what's at play.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, when you mentioned just consolidating and kind of getting your hands dirty and just going through that process, I think it's really important that rather than looking for a new tool all the time, you just figure out how to use that tool better. There are so many different client relation management systems. You can use HubSpot, you can use GHL. We actually have some of these that are built for coaches to start to simplistically understand their business pipeline. Right? Where do you have people coming in? Where do you have people going out? How long do they spend in each one? And just starting to understand some of those things so it helps you understand what problems you need to solve. And when we talk about principles versus tactics, and we really just distill this in the biggest 60,000-foot view where we're not necessarily worried about, like, what am I doing day to day? You're either acquiring or you're retaining, right? If you're losing a lot of people, but you're not necessarily acquiring a lot, you can kind of go either way, which most new business owners don't have a strong acquisition cycle or tool. They also don't have a good retention cycle or process. And so you have to kind of pick one of those two things. If you try to retain and grow at the same time, you're going to have your split attention. And if you don't have 40 hours a week to commit to making that a full-time career or, making that transition as a professional, it's going to take you longer to figure that stuff out, which is why you want to maybe go find a mentor, go seek another education piece or whatever that is, or subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. If you haven't, shame on you. But, I think that acquire, retain. From there, we have then lead generation. We have sales, right? And then we have fulfillment and referrals. And, we have the R framework, the R3 framework. There's a lot of R's and a lot of threes in there.
3R.
And then the relationship part is the only one that I remember. Relate, reframe. Nope. It's I can't say that R word, but you know what I'm thinking. And so, but there's a lot of different ways that you can go about finding the things that make sense to you, and you'll know because they'll just feel something that you're drawn to. And as long as you're not being gaslit by someone that's doing unethical business practices and just trying to sell you something, you want to slowly gather these things and piece them together in a way that feels organic to you. And I'll close out with this whole monologue here that's going on way too long, but when you think about artists, you have neoclassical, you have romantic art, there are these time frames of artists that are probably doing something similar, which is why it fits into that time frame. And while that might be similar in terms of how they do certain things, the output or the product is drastically different, which is why it becomes valuable. And so you want to think about, well, if you're doing the same brush strokes, you're doing the same color palette, or you're using whatever, how do you make that thing truly yours in a way that it's recognizable? And that's part of building your brand and taking the principles, but packaging them in a way that feels great to you, that you can easily explain to your clients.
Yeah.
So
all this to say, we've all failed at something in our business before. It's not new. If you haven't yet, you're going to, at some point in time, find some issue, hit a bump in the road. It's a part of it. So go back and look at the failure point, the thing that broke, and understand how do you fix it. And through that journey, you should start to learn, okay, there was a tactic at play, but maybe I didn't actually understand the principle. And now when the principle worked at some point in time, it was probably more of a tactic working. The principle might still be sound. How do you now navigate changing that to fit? It's just part of the journey.
Well, you mentioned that, we've all failed at something. And so to, the listeners that might be feeling a little like, oh, well, you guys seem like you have it well together. What would you say the thing that you've struggled with across, your business development career and kind of tenure? What do you think the one or two things that you keep running into are? And then how do you create a tactic, or what's some tactics that you use to offset that?
I overcomplicate things.
Okay.
All the time. Because for me, the tinkering and the learning and the ability to take something and go, wow, this is a 9 out of 10 good, but I know I can do 9.5 out of 10, and let me build all these extra things that are going to just really produce a diminished return result. That's always a big issue. So it slows down my deployment simply because I keep adding more. Or when something does break, because inevitably with all the tech it does, it's like, wow, where in this thing of 40 pieces, what broke, rather than the 3 things I needed to actually accomplish the job better than good.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's being more divergent of I'm great at finding problems. And so because I like to sit and think, I'm like, okay, well, cool. Let me sit back. Let me identify all the issues before I start solving one of them. And you can imagine that if you're knowledgeable in a field, you can find a lot of problems, and the problems never stop. And so part of it is knowing when the critical drop off of like, how many problems do I need to organize? How many critical questions do I need to identify and start to knock down before I just stop collecting?
Yep.
And so for me, the thing that I do from a tactic perspective, knowing that I tend to spread myself too thin across too many possible things, is the principle, Hicks law, paralysis by analysis. I will only find 5 to 10 critical questions, and then I'll organize them into what are the 3 most important ones based upon how much effort I have to put into solving them against how much impact they're likely to have. So if it's high effort, low impact, like if I could call a client every single hour of every single day and they're paying me $250 a month, you can imagine that's high effort, low impact, right? If anything, it might even have negative impact. But if I say like, okay, cool, I'm going to meet once a week, and now they're going to feel like they're supported, they have some good accountability, they have enough time to work through things, that would be a lower effort, higher impact. And so that's kind of how I triage things of if I don't have bandwidth, I'm going to pick low effort, high impact. If I do have bandwidth, I might start to tackle things that are a little bit more high effort, but maybe not as important down the road. So, hopefully that makes conceptual sense to the listeners and they have some things that they can start thinking through now. But anything else that you think makes sense for us to wrap up this episode?
No, just we're all going to break some things. We're all going to have to learn. Start understanding when you buy something to deploy, implement, when it breaks, what are the difference between the tactics, the principles at play, what strategies are at hand. And when you start to understand those key concepts, you're going to be able to ultimately be able to be more in control over changing what's going on and create the outcome that you desire versus allowing the outcomes to just naturally happen because you don't understand the fundamentals that are in there.
Yeah, I would say just take notes and reverse engineer the principles. If you're not sure what the principles are, you'll notice that there's a through line. There's something that connects all of that stuff. If you're always dropping clients off at week 3, you have to take notes. Otherwise, you would never know. You just feel like, I'm losing clients all over the place. Well, that's not helpful from a problem-solving perspective. And if you're trying to solve that problem, collect the information, take some time to analyze the information, refine your processes, and then go and execute a new plan, which is something we teach in our nutrition. And realistically, it's one of our core foundational coaching models of we have the care method, where you just collect what you need, look at it, make the changes you need to make, and then get out there and go get busy. And so, if we were to offer you anything like that, that would be something that I would encourage you as a framework and an acronym. I have some too. But yeah, something hopefully
You're
that
just low vocal about your acronyms. When I invent something new, I'm like, tell the world.
That's fair. So. That's fair. Mildtism on my part. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it on my end.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Beyond the Pump today. We break down the business of fitness and nutrition. Like this episode, throw a comment in there if you want us to answer a different question, and subscribe to the channel to get more updates so we can help you grow your business.
Till next time.